He didn't always act like this. There was a time when his eyes lingered, when his hand reached for yours like it was instinct, when he laughed at your stories before you even got to the funny part, because he was just happy you were talking. He once made you feel like the safest place in the world was not a home, but a heartbeat his. But now, he's distant. He replies later and later. His smile feels thinner, like it's hiding something it doesn't want to explain. You ask how he is, and get busy. You ask what's wrong and hear nothing. You try to bring back the warmth, but everything you do feels like too much or not enough. So you sit there, in silence, wondering, did I do something wrong? Was I too much? Was I not enough? Or worse, was it never real? If he suddenly pulls away, it feels like the sky changes color, like something beautiful that once lit your life goes dark without warning. And the part that hurts the most, you never got to say goodbye to who he was before he changed. But this story, this moment you're in, it's not just about him, it's about what this silence is waking up inside you. Because when someone pulls away from you, it doesn't just create space in the present, it echoes through every room in your past where you were left, unseen, unheard, unheld. This video isn't here to analyze him like a puzzle. It's here to hold you. To show you that this moment, this confusion, this ache, it has a name, a rhythm, a truth, and you're not alone inside it. We're going to walk into the quiet and listen to what it's really trying to tell you. Not with cold psychology or pretty words, but with something deeper, something human, something you might have needed to hear a long time ago. So if you're ready not to fix him, but to face what this is awakening inside of you, stay with me. Breathe. Let's begin. And if at any point you feel this is speaking to you, share it with someone who needs it too. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's not just support, it's a signal to others like you. You are not alone. Sometimes, the way someone leaves feels eerily familiar. Not because you've been with this exact person before, but because you've felt this exact confusion. You think, how did we get here? But the better question might be, why does this hurt like I've been here before? There's a pattern you might not even realize you're repeating. A dance that begins the moment someone seems warm, present, almost too good to be true, and ends the moment they begin to slip away. You sense it in your chest before it hits your mind. A tension, an alertness. Suddenly, you're trying harder. You're texting more thoughtfully. You're reading between lines that weren't even written. You're reaching for clarity, but what you get is fog. And the more you try to hold on, the faster they seem to disappear. This isn't about logic. This is about survival. Somewhere along the way, long before him, you learned that love could vanish. That connection came with conditions. That silence was a punishment. And withdrawal meant danger. You learned to fix, to chase, to prove your worth in the spaces where it was never recognized in the first place. So when he pulls away, it doesn't just feel like rejection. It feels like abandonment. And not just his, it wakes up the memory of every time someone made you feel hard to love. You might tell yourself, if I just give him space, he'll come back. Or, if I can stay calm, be chill, not be too much. But the truth is, you're not just fighting for him. You're fighting for a version of love you've always hoped was possible. Because you saw something in him, not just his presence, but your possibility. A quiet, unspoken hope that maybe this time it wouldn't fall apart. And when it starts to, even just slightly, you don't just feel heartbreak. You feel like you're losing a chance to rewrite every love that came before. But here's the painful, powerful truth. When someone pulls away without words, without reason, without care, it says nothing about your worth. It only reveals their limits. It doesn't matter if they once looked at you like you were the moon. If today they look through you like your air, what matters now is not what you were, but what they cannot face. People don't pull away randomly. And I don't mean because they've lost interest or met someone else. That's the shallow version of the story, the one that keeps you spiraling. The real story goes deeper. Some people pull away when the closeness becomes too honest, when the reflection you offer shows them something they're not ready to see. Because real love demands presence. It demands truth. And if someone hasn't built that within themselves, they'll run from anyone who reminds them what's missing. You didn't break him. You didn't ruin it. You may have simply loved him in a way he wasn't ready to receive. And instead of saying, "I'm afraid," he just vanished into silence, because that's what unhealed people do. They ghost themselves before they ghost you. But I want you to breathe now. Feel your chest rise. This isn't the end of your love story. It might be the first time you finally hear the one that's been waiting beneath all the others. The one where you don't lose yourself trying to keep someone else. The one where silence is no longer something you fill, but something you listen to. And what it's saying, if you really hear it, is this: you were never too much. You were just with someone who didn't know how to hold what you offer. Let that settle. Let it hurt. Then let it free you. There's a specific kind of heartbreak that doesn't come with a breakup. No slammed doors, no screaming fights, no final words. Just a shift, a slow, quiet pulling away, a change in the way they say your name, a subtle pause before they answer your calls, if they answer at all. This is the kind of ending that doesn't feel like an end. It feels like waiting in a room where someone was supposed to meet you, and they never show up. No explanation, no closure, just the echo of your own hope. And maybe that's what hurts the most. You were hopeful. You let yourself believe. You cracked open a part of yourself that had been guarded, careful, maybe even cold for a long time, and you let someone in. Not just into your life, but into the soft places. The parts of you that remember what it was like to be unseen, to be chosen and then forgotten, to be loved loudly at first, and then abandoned in whispers. So when he starts to pull away, you don't just miss the messages or the time together. You miss who you thought you were finally allowed to be. You miss the version of yourself that felt held. Because that's what love does. It's not just about connection with them. It's about what that connection awakens in you. It makes you feel alive again, hopeful again, safe again. And when that love disappears, especially without words, it can feel like you've lost more than a person. You feel like you've lost yourself. But I want you to hear this. Come closer. Lean into the quiet. You are not what someone else failed to love. You are not the silence they left behind. You are not the confusion they created and refused to explain. You are still the person who showed up with an open heart, who dared to believe in something real, who loved even when love felt risky. And that is something to honor, not erase. But here's the deeper truth, the one you already know, but maybe haven't let yourself say out loud. If someone can disappear on you without offering clarity, compassion, or care, then their love was never rooted in presence. It was rooted in convenience. And convenience isn't love. Love doesn't run from closeness. Love doesn't go silent when things get real. Love doesn't punish you with confusion and call it space. You deserve the kind of love that stays. That communicates. That meets discomfort with honesty, not disappearance. But before you find that with someone else, you have to find it within yourself. Because here's what happens when someone pulls away and you keep reaching. You start betraying yourself. You lower your volume so theirs can echo. You compromise your standards just to hold on to the connection. You start to apologize for things that were never your fault. And in the end, you don't just lose them, you lose you. So stop chasing what's already left. Let the silence be what it is, not a rejection, a revelation. Let it show you the truth they didn't have the courage to say, that they were never ready to hold the kind of love you offer. And now that you know that, you're free. Free to stop waiting. Free to stop explaining yourself to someone who never asked the right questions. Free to stop performing worthiness in the hope they'll finally see it. You were already worthy. long before they came, long after they go. This silence, it's not the end of something precious. It's the start of something sacred. Your return to yourself. There's a reason it cuts so deep. Because it's not just him you're grieving, it's what you felt when you were with him. Or maybe more accurately, it's what you finally allowed yourself to hope for. You let yourself believe that this time, maybe love wouldn't leave. Maybe this time, it wouldn't turn cold when you got close. Maybe this time, you wouldn't have to shrink to be chosen. But here's something not many people talk about. The most dangerous part of being with someone emotionally unavailable is how they bring out the most emotionally generous parts of you. They don't ask for all of you, but somehow you give it anyway. Because you want it to be real. Because you want to prove that love can last. Because deep down, a part of you still thinks that if you just love hard enough, you'll finally be loved back the way you deserve. But what if I told you, you were never meant to convince someone to stay? That loving someone harder will never make them less afraid? That showing up fully for someone who keeps disappearing isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment in disguise? I know that's hard to hear. I know you think, but he saw something in me, didn't he? He said things. He stayed close. He held me. Yes, he may have said the right words. But love isn't measured by words. It's measured by consistency. And if his presence is conditional, only available when it's easy, when it's light, when it asks nothing of him, then it's not love. It's attention dressed up like affection. You deserve more than that. You deserve someone who doesn't vanish when you become vulnerable. Someone who doesn't leave you questioning your every word, your every move, your every need. You deserve to rest in love, not chase it. And I want you to remember something important. When someone pulls away, your first instinct might be to pull closer, to close the gap, to fix what broke. But healing doesn't come from reaching further into someone else's distance. It comes from returning to your own presence, to the part of you that's been here all along, the part that waited patiently while you prioritized someone who couldn't even say goodbye. The part of you that still believes in love, real love, not the performative, not the temporary, but the kind that stays. And maybe, just maybe, this pain you feel right now is not proof that you were wrong to love, but proof that you can, that you have the capacity to go deep, to show up, to be soft even in a world that often teaches you to be hard. So don't harden here. Don't let someone's absence convince you to shut yourself down. This isn't a reason to stop loving. It's a reason to start loving yourself differently. No more begging someone to care. No more waiting in silence for someone to return with a version of love they've never learned to carry. No more shrinking into quiet just to keep peace with someone who causes chaos. This heartbreak, this ache, this unanswered space is asking you one question. Will you finally choose you? Not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but out of something far more powerful. Truth. Because the truth is, when someone pulls away without explanation, you don't need to chase their why. You need to remember your worth. There's a moment in every silent heartbreak when you finally stop refreshing the messages that never come. Not because you've healed yet, not because you don't still ache, but because something inside you whispers, you've waited long enough. It's not a loud voice. Not angry. Just tired of holding space for someone who won't hold it back. Tired of rereading old conversations, trying to find the moment it shifted. Tired of blaming yourself for the quiet they left behind. And in that moment when you exhale for real, when you stop pretending you're fine, a different kind of grief shows up. Not grief for them, but grief for you, for the version of you that kept hoping, for the version of you that softened every time they came back, even if only halfway, for the version of you that loved without a backup plan. You see, people talk a lot about heartbreak, but they don't talk enough about what it breaks open. Because beneath the tears, beneath the self-blame, beneath the desperate search for meaning, there's something more sacred waiting. There's you. The you that remembers what it feels like to love without fear. The you that doesn't perform for affection, The you that stopped asking, "What did I do wrong?" and started asking, "Why do I keep choosing people who can't stay?" And that shift, that turn inward, is where the real healing begins. Not when they come back, but when you stop needing them to. There's a strange freedom in realizing that closure was never theirs to give. It was always yours to claim. You don't need them to explain why they pulled away. You don't need the final conversation where everything makes sense. You don't need one last moment to prove your worth. You just need to see clearly that their silence is not your responsibility, that their distance is not your failure, that their inability to love you fully says nothing about your ability to be loved deeply. And yes, maybe there was something real between you, but real doesn't always mean right, and right doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes, the most honest thing someone can give you is their absence, because it forces you to face the truth they were never brave enough to say. They couldn't meet you where you stood. And now, you don't have to stand there waiting anymore. You get to move. You get to rebuild the parts of yourself you handed over too soon. You get to love in a way that doesn't feel like sacrifice. And one day, not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, you'll be held by someone who never makes you wonder if you're too much. Someone who hears your silence and leans in, who doesn't run when it gets deep, who doesn't disappear when you get close. But for now, let this ache remind you, you are still here, you are still love, and you are still becoming. There's a quiet kind of strength in not calling, not texting, not reaching, not explaining yourself one more time to someone who never really listened in the first place. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally understand peace isn't something you get from them. It's something you protect from them. And maybe that's the hardest part to accept. That someone who once made you feel so alive is now the reason you feel so numb. That someone who used to say they cared now treats you like a stranger. That the person who once leaned in walked away without even turning back. And you stayed in your heart, in your thoughts, in your longing. You stayed long after they left, because that's what people like you do. You love with your whole being. You don't give up just because it gets quiet. You believe in repair, not retreat. You believe in conversation, not avoidance. But now you see it. This was never about a mutual bond. It was a cycle. You loved. They pulled away. You held on tighter. They disappeared further. You blamed yourself. They said nothing. And somewhere in that cycle, you stopped asking what you needed. You stopped noticing how your own light dimmed just to keep their presence around. You stopped feeling like you were allowed to want more clarity, more safety, more effort. So let me say it clearly, you are allowed to want more. You are allowed to want someone who doesn't make you feel like a question mark. Someone who doesn't make you earn the very thing they offered freely at first. Someone who stays, not just when it's easy, but when it's real. And I know, there's a part of you still hoping they'll come back. Still wondering if maybe, just maybe, they're thinking about you too. But ask yourself, what are you really hoping for? Is it their presence? Or is it the version of them you created in your heart, the version that never disappeared, never went cold, never made you feel small? Because that version only lived in your hope, not in their hands, not in their choices. And now, your heart deserves to rest, to stop holding space for someone who never intended to stay, to stop waiting for answers from a person who couldn't even offer honesty, to stop asking, why wasn't I enough? And start whispering, I always was. Maybe this pain has been your teacher. Maybe the silence wasn't just an end. Maybe it was an invitation to finally come home to yourself. And in that home, there is no confusion. There is no chasing. There is no coldness disguised as space. There is warmth. There is knowing. There is you whole healing rising. You don't need to win someone back who never truly saw you. You need to remember what it's like to see yourself again. That's where you begin. There's something sacred about the moment you stop needing them to care. Not because you've turned cold, but because you've turned inward. You start to notice things you forgot were yours. The way your laughter sounds when it's real. The softness in your voice when you're not trying to be understood. The quiet steadiness in your chest when you're not waiting for someone to reply. It's subtle at first. You still think of them, still check the places where they used to show up, still catch yourself wondering if maybe, somehow, they'll miss you. But then something shifts. You stop romanticizing the few good moments and start remembering the patterns. How you were always the one initiating. How your neds felt like burdens. How you kept making excuses for their absence. And most of all, how you kept betraying your own heart just to protect theirs. You were so focused on not scaring them away that you silenced the parts of yourself that were already screaming, "This hurts. This feels unsafe. This isn't love." But now you hear it. You hear you again. And it's not a bitter voice. It's not angry or loud. It's honest. It says, you don't need to fix what wasn't yours to hold. You don't need to chase someone who chose distance over dialogue. You don't need to be the emotional glue holding together what was already cracking. You need rest. You need softness. You need truth. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you're willing to give that to yourself. Because when someone you care about pulls away, it's tempting to make it all about them. What they felt, what they feared, what they ran from. But the real power lives in the question you rarely ask. What did I abandon in myself to keep this connection alive? Maybe it was your boundaries, your sense of calm, your belief that love should feel safe, not uncertain. Maybe you started accepting breadcrumbs and calling it nourishment. Maybe you confused effort with love, because you were always the one trying. But not anymore. You are done performing stability in an unstable relationship. Done proving your worth to someone who was blind to it. Done being the emotional anchor for someone who never learned how to swim in depth. Let them go. Not because they were evil, not because they didn't matter, but because your peace matters more. Your nervous system matters more. Your joy, your wholeness, your clarity, they matter more. And I know it's hard to grieve someone who's still alive, to say goodbye without hearing it back, to walk away from something that almost felt like love, but almost will keep you starving, almost will break your heart slowly, almost will keep you waiting in rooms where no one plans to return. And you were not made for almost, you were made for all. So breathe. This is not where you lose. This is where you reclaim your time, your energy, your heart, yourself. Healing doesn't always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like sitting in your car after holding it together all day, finally letting the tears fall. Sometimes it looks like deleting a number you memorized just to stop checking if they're online. Sometimes it's whispering, I deserve better. When your whole body still wants to say, but I miss him. This is the quiet work. The invisible, painful, powerful part of healing no one claps for. No one sees you choosing not to reach out. No one sees you finally falling asleep without the urge to check your phone. No one sees how hard it is to unlearn the habit of overgiving, of tying your worth to how needed you are. But I see you. You've been carrying so much, holding space for love that never held you back, giving chances to someone who couldn't even give you honesty, trying to love someone into healing, thinking maybe that would make them stay. But love doesn't work like that. Your love can't fix someone's fear. Your softness can't melt a wall they built long before you arrived. You can love deeply and still walk away. You can want someone and still know they're not healthy for you. You can miss what you had without romanticizing the way it made you feel small. And the truth is, sometimes they don't even mean to hurt you. Sometimes people pull away not because they stopped loving you, but because they never learned how to stay. Their absence isn't personal, but the damage is, it leaves you doubting your intuition, questioning your worth, replaying every message, wondering which one was too much. And yet, here you are, still standing, still feeling, still loving, even if it's just yourself, quietly, in moments no one notices. That's strength. Not the loud kind, not the performative kind, but the kind that rebuilds a heart from the inside out. And it starts with telling yourself the truth. You deserve to be chosen without confusion. You deserve someone who doesn't pull away when you get close. You deserve presence, not performance. Clarity, not guessing games. Warmth, not mood swings. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking someone to meet you where they never intended to go. So now, meet yourself. Meet yourself in the stillness. In the mornings where it still hurts. In the nights when the silence feels loud. In the moments you almost reach out and choose your peace instead. That's love. That's healing. And slowly, quietly, that's how you come back home to yourself. Not with a bang, but with a breath. And maybe that's the kind of love you've been searching for all along. There's a moment it doesn't come all at once where something inside you simply refuses to break the way it used to. You still feel everything. You still remember their voice. You still ache, especially in the quiet hours. But you don't bend the same. You don't reach for the things that used to comfort you but cost you your dignity. You don't write the messages in your notes app anymore, hoping one day you'll have a reason to send them. You don't fantasize about their return with the same hunger, because you finally understand the person who leaves without explanation is not the one who brings peace when they come back. They bring the same silence, just repackaged. The same confusion, wrapped in temporary warmth. The same emptiness, disguised as, I miss you. And you've already outgrown that kind of love. You didn't even mean to. You were just tired of crying over people who never stayed to see your tears. Tired of carrying conversations alone. Tired of begging for breadcrumbs in a world full of feasts. So you stopped, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself more. And maybe no one around you noticed, but you did. The way you didn't answer their half-hearted message. The way you breathed through the craving to reconnect. The way you started choosing people who choose you back. That's what healing is. Not a straight line, not a clean break, but a series of small, brave choices that say, I deserve more than confusion. I won't be the only one fighting for this. I refuse to shrink so someone else can stay comfortable. It's not easy. Some days it still hurts like hell. You'll walk past something that reminds you of them, a song, a scent, the way someone's eyes flicker in a crowd, and it'll hit you like it just happened yesterday. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're not healing. It means you're human. We don't forget people we loved. We just stop letting the memory of them define how we see ourselves. That's what you're doing now. Letting go of the story where your worth was tied to someone else's ability to stay. You're no longer trying to prove you're lovable by saving the unsavable. You're no longer auditioning for the kind of love that should have been offered without condition. And maybe one day you'll look back at this version of yourself, the one sitting in the wreckage, trying to make sense of silence, and you'll smile. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you didn't let it hollow you out. You let it shape you. You let it remind you of what you truly deserve. You let it be a door, not into despair, but into you. And if he ever comes back, looking for what he left behind, he won't find her. Not because she's gone, but because she finally came home to herself